Good afternoon, everyone. It's David Schlotthauer here in the home weather office for this Monday, September the 18th, 2023. In today's video, we are keeping an eye on the southwestern Atlantic, including for the southeastern U.S., as we could have another subtropical storm developing along the eastern seaboard, and this could bring in some pretty significant heavy rainfall, flooding, strong winds, and that sort of thing. We're also keeping an eye on the high plains for a severe weather event that could unfold tomorrow too. So we have a double threat to talk about in today's video. Now, taking a look at your current satellite imagery here for September the 18th, 2023. Can't believe it. It is almost fall, folks, and the weather pattern is beginning to illustrate that for us. We got some cool weather across the Great Lakes and the Northeast here because we have that trough that is carved out. This is actually leading to a front that is draped across the Florida Panhandle region, including for the Carolinas as well, off the Carolina coast. This is going to be our instigator of what is to come in the next few days. And then, of course, we're keeping an eye on what happens here over the Four Corners. There's going to be severe weather that develops because we have a little bit of a weather disturbance that is going to bring in some significant hail, maybe some significant winds. That's a potential. But the good thing with this is we don't see a big tornado threat for Oklahoma and for northern Texas. In fact, if we look at tomorrow's outlook, there's only a slight risk for severe weather for northern Texas, for Oklahoma, with a marginal risk surrounding that from southwestern Texas into southern Kansas, as well as western and eastern Oklahoma, including for the panhandle there of Texas. This is driven mainly by no tornadoes, but a 15% non-sig for damaging winds and a 15 sig for large hail. We could see some golf ball size hail out of these storms tomorrow. Now, timing these storms out in the Oklahoma, northern Texas portion for tomorrow, we're looking at some pop-up storms. Actually, this is about 3 in the morning Central Time. So if you're sleeping, you're going to be woken up by some thunderstorms that are going to be very loud and roaring. And then storms do continue to leap their way into Oklahoma City, southern Oklahoma. We could see some pop-up storms, but it's not really until we get to tomorrow when the daytime heating gets underway where we get some of the more bigger storms. Look at this one right here. This is definitely a good storm cluster that could bring in some intense rainfall, maybe some large hail. Again, golf balls, maybe baseball size hail is certainly a possibility out of these storms in isolated areas, including for western Arkansas. We might see a pop-up storm or two, and then eventually by tomorrow night, we could get some big time hail down here in northern Texas as well as Oklahoma as that disturbance swings on through. That's not just going to bring a lot of thunderstorms, but we're also looking at quite a bit of rainfall. The Weather Prediction Center has issued a day 1 flight risk for heavy rainfall over Maine as well as New Hampshire, Vermont, Massachusetts, including for Rhode Island as well as, say, Connecticut, including for the tail southern or eastern end there of Long Island. But it's going to be tomorrow where we are going to see that slight risk and marginal risk really develop over the high plains from northern Texas all the way to Oklahoma, eastern Kansas, as well as northern Missouri. There's a slight and marginal risk for heavy rainfall and flood potential. That's a 5 to 15% chance that you could experience flooding somewhere in the neck of your woods. So keep that in mind that not only we're looking at some large hail, some gusty winds, and maybe a funnel cloud, but we're also looking at the chance for some pretty beneficial rainfall for these areas. But too much too quick could lead to flooding. On we go to Wednesday morning here, right around about 3 in the morning for your September the 20th time frame. And yep, it is raining pretty good if you're in Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas, if you're in eastern Oklahoma, if you're in western portion there of Arkansas. Yep, you might be woken up by some pretty intense rainfall, maybe some hail, and of course, some loud rumbling thunder with those storms. Not only that, also for northern Missouri, southern Iowa, you might be woken up due to some thunderstorm activity, but nothing too severe up there, since that's going to be more than likely elevated. But you get the drill, everyone. It's going to be a stormy one. Now let's transition and talk about our storm system that is going to be knocking on the door by the middle to the end of this week. The National Hurricane Center is already watching this disturbance pretty closely off the Carolina coast. This has a 30% chance of tropical formation or more subtropical characteristics by the middle to the end of this week. And if it develops, folks, we're going to be looking at some very strong winds and some pretty beneficial heavy rainfall with several inches perhaps along the Carolina, Virginia coast, including for Delaware, Maryland, New Jersey, all the way up into the eastern or northeastern seaboard like Maine, maybe Massachusetts. This could be a big one, so that's why we need to get talking, right? So here's a look at the latest look at the GFS model. We always like looking at this. This is my favorite model that I stare at. I can stare at this all day long, in fact, because I'm so hyper addicted to the GFS. Maybe some of you are, maybe you're not. You get, So let's go forward. The system develops here off of a decaying cold front, right? We got to watch these cold fronts when they move far enough south. If we get any vorticity that spins up along these, we could get some sneaky development. And here's one of those areas to watch. And so going forward, this is, by the way, on Friday. So late week into the weekend, look at this. We got some pretty intense rainfall. In fact, this is late Friday into early Saturday. In the next 4 to 5 days, we could see some pretty intense rainfall and some flooding over the eastern or the east coast of South Carolina, the east coast of North Carolina, and yes, if you're in Norfolk, in Virginia. We could see some pretty substantial amounts of heavy rain rates, maybe some flooding, of course, some strong thunderstorms to go along with that, and that works its way into the northeast. As you all can see here, we could be looking at some pretty intense rainfall over Pennsylvania as well as New Jersey. And again, some of these could contain some intense thunderstorms as well. So downtown New York, this is by, say, 7 and 8 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time. Yeah, you're going to get pelted with some pretty intense rainfall for mid to late September. Nice to get something, but too much is too quick, and that's why you're going to be seeing some flooding, and that eventually goes all the way up into Maine. As you all can see here, you can see some of the outer bands going to be shredded apart due to some dry air intrusion, but either way, you're going to get some rain out of this. So now what about those winds? You all are probably wondering about that sneaky disturbance. Yeah, you all are wondering, right? Are you going to see more power outages, or is it just going to be one of those fish-type storms? Well, let's go forward. Kind of move this forward in time. We can see there is your decaying cold front right in here, right? And then we have that disturbance that forms right within that baroclinic frontal system, the kind of frontogenetic that we have, and then going forward all the way out to 85 hours, and then really when we go out to 96 hours, see what we got going on here? We got a system that tries to spin up. This is day 4, by the way. Strong northeasterly winds here at around, say, 35 to 45 miles an hour. So that would be would meet the criteria of a subtropical storm. And then going forward, we even get some blips in here that have winds of 52 miles an hour. That is pretty strong. Okay, this is not a weak system at all. This moves on shore and could bring in some pretty intense winds right along the coast here of Cape Hatteras in North Carolina. If you are in Savannah, Georgia, or not Savannah, Georgia, but if you're in Wilmington, North Carolina, yes, Mark said it, this is for you. Please be aware of this one. You might want to get those cameras out and going by the end of this week. Wind gusts are also going to be pretty substantial, especially along the coast here. You could see wind gusts anywhere between 50 to 60 miles an hour. That could blow down trees and power lines. We might even see peak gusts in the mid-60s to upper 60s too. That would really be significant, and those winds really make their way northward into Pennsylvania, into New Jersey. You have wind gusts between 35 to 50 miles an hour. So again, another system, I'm afraid, on our radar that we have to watch. Now, how much rainfall could you all be seeing out of this? Well, the Euro, big X on the Euro. I don't think it's going to happen. It's been shifting rapidly eastward. But the other two models, guess what? Whole different ball game, right? I like playing ball, and it's just a different ball game at this point, right? You hit the bat and you miraculously hit a home run and you keep on hitting them. It's a different ball game. That's what we're looking at here on the GFS. The Euro, nothing in the Carolinas or in Virginia. That to that. Pretty significant difference, all right? So we got to watch the GFS because this could bring, the GFS shows maybe 3 to 6 inches of rainfall. That is a lot, but not only that, the Canadian is also agreeing onto the GFS. And you know, there has been some news or some rumors going around that the GFS actually predicted Lee perfectly. So the question is it onto something with this next system? And if this were ordered to develop, this would be Subtropical Storm Ophelia, or Philia. I think you just say Philia, not the O in there. And so we'd be on our letter O storm, and it would be a U.S. impactful system. By the way, it only takes a tropical depression or even lesser than that to bring significant impacts to the eastern seaboard. So this one has a lot of rain with it, maybe, according to the Canadian, 4 to even as much as 8 inches of rainfall along the coast here of the Carolinas into, say, Virginia. This one we will have to watch. I sure hope this video helped you out a lot, folks. If it did, please consider subscribing. You guys are really awesome. I love you guys. I truly do. And I cannot wait to for me to present you all with something that you have not seen on any other YouTube weather channel. Possibly this winter, or I'm hoping this winter by, like, say, late November into December, I'm purchasing a $3,000 to $4,000 drone, and that drone will be able to give you some awesome sunset pictures, live streaming coverage on the active weather. If we get it here, it's gonna be great. But you know, there's a disadvantage to that. You have to be a member in order to get that access to unique members only content. All right, so if you want to do that, check out the link below this video where you can actually become a member today if you want to. Also, share, like, and subscribe, and I'll be back with you more tomorrow.